Welcome to the Jamal Thomas Actual Morning Show. It is very early in the morning here, brutally early, actually, considering how late I was up trying to work through videos. I fell asleep doing those videos, and so they are being uploaded as we speak, actually. Yesterday was a damn good show. The views may not show it, but it was a damn good show. And we had multiple or various people giving analysis on what they thought was going to take place. Caleb was probably far more optimistic, probably too optimistic, considering the way that this seemed to have turned out. On the positive side, you had the U.S. president and the Russian president come together. I would imagine the Russian president and the delegation told him exactly what they needed as their core demands. We require your surrender. As the Russians used to say when they play chess, I need your resignation. Give me your resignation. But it's Putin, so he's not going to put it in those terms. But they were probably core demands that the Russians wanted. Now, I think I postulated the question, well, two things. A, Trump needs an out, Trump needs a win. What has taken place on the battlefield is what has effectively brought us to this particular position in this particular place. He needs an out. But the question that I think I raised was whether or not a U.S. president was capable of accepting the demands of a Russian president, especially one that is confident, knows that he is winning on the battlefield, knows that if the situation on the battlefield progresses, a resolution will be had one way or the other. Now, my thing was, it is worse for Trump to allow that eventuality to take place on the battlefield as opposed to coming up with a face-saving mechanism of some kind of deal. But again, you're stuck with that original premise. Is it possible for a U.S. president to accept the terms of a Russian president? It seems that that answer is no. At the very least, it seems to be no, unless there's some secret plan that's taking place behind the scenes that we don't necessarily know about that Donald Trump is shuffling to Europe. Now, I'm going to play the press conference. I haven't watched the entirety of this. I thought it would be a better idea to watch it together where we can react together. You can give me your take on what you think is taking place behind the scenes, and you can give me your take on whether or not how you think this ultimately turns out based on what the world leaders said. A few things, though. One, Trump can no longer say, nobody told me that. That is no longer an excuse. That is no longer an out. You were told directly everything that the Russian delegation had to tell you, including the real figures of the people that have been killed on the battlefield, as opposed to the nonsense numbers that they were going with. And I would imagine, considering the military person was there for Russia, what is actually taking place on the battlefield in real terms. Now, whether Trump wants to accept it or not, whether Trump believes it or not, he was told. And you can look at what is taking place on the battlefield, and I suspect, again, it is the advance and the speed of the advance and the fact that that advance is picking up and the weakening of the Ukrainian military that is on some level forced this meeting from the American side, who was begging for this meeting. That's why this meeting is taking place. Let's go to the press conference. Again, I have not seen this yet. We can watch this and react to it together, and we can come away with our assessments together. So let's pull this up. It is very early for me. This is some damn good coffee. And look, all things being equal, I would love for there to be a resolution. But, you know, the United States is not a trustworthy actor. And so, and also the Russian president, under no circumstances, can take a deal that the public, A, will not accept, the military will not accept, and he can't accept on behalf of the Russian state that this war is being waged for. So it doesn't matter that Trump wants a ceasefire. Trump could get a ceasefire if he accepts Russian demands, which are not all that insane. Cut down on the military, stop your weapons, stop your intelligence. The Ukrainian military has to leave those areas. Why do they have to leave those areas? Because A, we don't trust you. B, these areas are part of the Russian Constitution. And if you want a ceasefire, well, we talk about larger and other issues. They need to leave. You're not a trustworthy actor. This cannot be Minsk 3. They've done this multiple times. And under every situation when an agreement was made, the US and Europe violated the agreement. So when you're coming to negotiations, you're negotiating in an atmosphere where there is no trust. Russia has no reason to trust the US. Trump is a flagrant liar. They have no reason to trust Trump. Any deal, any agreement has to be made with it is built into that agreement. Distrust. I hope you get my point. Whatever we agree upon, we're agreeing upon it under the idea that I don't trust you. So the agreement has to be constructed in a way where I don't have to trust you. That is a difficult way to construct an agreement, right? Trump does not have the charisma that he thinks he has. He does not have the personal grace that he thinks he has. And the idea that you're just going to get into a room and get what you want is nonsense. I thought that the context of this meeting may have been shaped because from my point of view, it would be very weird for the US president to invite the Russian president here just to be told no to his face. Apparently. It sounds like he was told no to his face. I'm going to play this. This is the press conference. Let's watch it together.
America and the President of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. In good health and to see you alive." I think that is very neighborly. And I think that's some kind words that we can say to each other. We're separated by the Strait of Bering, though there are 2 islands only between the Russian island and the US island. They're only 4 kilometers apart. We're close neighbors, and it's a fact. It's also important that Alaska has to do with our common heritage, common history between Russia and the US, and many positive events have to do with that territory. Still, there is tremendous cultural heritage back from the Russian America. For example, Orthodox churches and a lot of more than 700 geographical names of Russian origin. During the Second World War, it was here in Alaska that was the origin of the legendary air bridge for the supply of military aircraft and other equipment under the Lend-Lease program. There was a dangerous and treacherous route over the vast emptiness of ice. However, the pilots of both countries did everything to bring closer the victory. They risked their lives and they gave it all for the common victory. I was just in the city of Magadan in Russia, and there is a memorial there dedicated to the Russian and the US pilots. And there are two flags, the US flag and the Russian flag. And I know that here as well, there is such a memorial. There is a military burial place several kilometers away from here. The Soviet pilots that buried there who died during that dangerous mission. We're thankful to the citizens and the government of the US for carefully taking care of their memory. I think that's very worthy and noble. We'll always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship that supported each other and facilitated each other. I'm sure that this heritage will help us rebuild and foster mutually beneficial and equal ties at this new stage, even during the hardest conditions. It is known that there have been no summits between Russia and the US for 4 years, and that's a long time. This time was very hard for bilateral relations, and let's be frank, they have fallen to the lowest point since the Cold War. I think that's not benefiting our countries and the world as a whole. It is apparent that sooner or later we had to amend the situation to move on from the confrontation to dialogue. And in this case, a personal meeting between the heads of state has been long overdue. Naturally, under the condition of serious and painstaking work, and this work has been done in general. Me and President Trump have very good direct contact. We've spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone. And Special Envoy of the President, Mr. Witkoff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time. And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we're prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the US and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the US can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the US. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the US, there was a so-called international date line. I think you can step over literally from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope that we'll succeed in that in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the US has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the US. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate. And I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Radcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here. And I think, you know, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time. And we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax that made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years. And we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed. And President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much. And we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
And next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Short, sweet, to the point. I would like to run through that one more time. Just, reaction, yes, but as a person, there's certain things in this I kind of want to point out and flag. Just as an overall thought and seeing this meeting, as I pointed out before, what Russia wants and what Putin is chasing is safety. He wants safety. Putin has an age on him. At some point, he's going to retire. And unlike the leaders in our government, it seems, and I could be wrong, but it seems like he doesn't want to leave Russia in the environment to which it is now. A bunch of Russophobes in Europe angling for war. This idea of not being safe with its neighbors. Like, all things being equal, these things he wanted to resolve. It's not that, again, he wanted a war. William Burns, in his memo, Net Means Net, pointed out, we are going to provoke a civil war by offering NATO membership to Ukraine. And the things that we were doing in Ukraine, CIA, agitations, NGOs, and eventually culminating into the 2014 overthrow of Yanukovych, when Yanukovych would nix up the European trash deal, and Russia had a better deal on the table. So, no, he doesn't want to leave Russia in a broken situation in regards to its neighbors and its security. He is chasing safety. Every word that is coming out of his mouth makes that point. We are neighbors. We don't have to be at each other's throats. We have a common heritage and a history. We sold you Alaska, effectively he's alluding to. You can effectively, we're this close to one another. Some of our Soviet soldiers are even buried on U.S. territory, and we appreciate you keeping their honor and their memory in place, because you have some European states that are digging up Soviet heroes, call them what they are. 80% of the Germans, of the Nazis that were shot in the face, were done so on the Eastern Front. So there's that. Again, under no circumstances would a Russian president come here and look weak and look bad. It just was never going to happen. Under no circumstances would the Russian president accept a deal that wasn't resolving and dealing with his core issues. And as you notice, again, chasing safety. We need to deal with the core issues, period. We need to deal with the long-term security of Europe, period. None of the short-term nonsense that all of you have been talking about in the US and European media. That's nonsense. I told you what our demands were. I told you what our needs were. That is what we need to deal with. And until we deal with that, we're not dealing with anything. What's interesting, though, is that it seems, or it sounds like, and maybe I heard this wrong, that there is a proposal on the table. There are a few things that brings the point up. Putin pointed out, he says, today agreement is a starting point. What is that agreement? What is that agreement? Now, I will tell you that when the Russians negotiate, they've pointed out, we don't negotiate in the press, we don't negotiate in social media, our negotiations are private, period. So whatever negotiation they may have come up with, however nascent it is, whatever terms it is, whatever the parameters of it, whatever the scope of it, would always be private. Trump made a statement that is typically made when negotiations have progressed. No agreement or nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. That's a typical negotiation talk. Hey, how are things going? Things are going great. We have certain provisions that we have agreed upon. We have certain things that we think we are setting an agreement with. However, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. None of this is set in stone. until all of it is set in stone. Usually you say that when you actually have an agreement or when you have some kind of framework for agreement. But again, as Trump pointed out, we haven't got there yet because, again, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. So that is a fascinating statement that Donald Trump is making, and it's a fascinating statement that Putin is making. Putin even made the point of saying he hopes that what they've agreed upon wouldn't be torpedoed. Whatever agreement that they've, quote unquote, reached would not necessarily be torpedoed when Donald Trump takes it to Europe. I don't think he mentioned Ukraine because Ukraine is a proxy. That's interesting. That doesn't sound like no. That doesn't sound like what you hear to be told. No. That sounds like there were many items that they effectively came to some kind of agreement upon, unless both of them are just lying, which will be weird. I don't get the sense that Putin is making that speech and is making that speech saying, I hope the things that we've agreed upon won't be torpedoed. And then Donald Trump is saying, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. And then both just so happen to be lying to the cameras. Is it possible? Yeah, but do you say that? If it's just a flat no, if both people just looked at each other and said F off, it was a 3-hour conversation between all of their principals and the main people. I would imagine both came with what they wanted to accomplish. Both came with their proposals. Both came with things that they can negotiate. I would wager to you that the negotiations that were taking place at each of the meetings with Witkoff, where Witkoff will come back, tell Trump what Putin needs. Witkoff comes back, tell Trump what Putin needs. And negotiations were taking place all the way through, leading up and culminating to today. So I know some people are going to take a very cynical view of this and say that this was nonsense. Everything failed. Everything was, that doesn't sound like it to me, though. It doesn't sound like it to me, though. I'm going to play this one more time because, again, I don't get the sense that this was a failure based off of this press conference and based off the things that Putin himself and Donald Trump said. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, again, Russia's chasing safety. Central issues, and there are 2 points before I play the video again. Putin's very conciliatory. I'm here. We have American soldiers or Russian soldiers. We did the land bridge. Basically, I am making historical context. That's what I'm doing. We are not as divided as we seem. We should not be divided. We are not a communist country. You're not fighting the Soviets. You're not fighting the communists. We're Orthodox, Christian, we're Russians. Now, in the old days where people would say, yeah, you just dislike us because we're communists. And other people would say, no, they're pretty racist. They hate you because you're Russians. Today, it comes across as the Russophobia. It's because they're Russians, which is even worse. Communism is a political ideology. Being Russians is your, heritage, ethnicity, culture, etc. That's worse, right? Putin is trying to make the point of saying, look, there have been times in history where we've cooperated, where we have worked together. We can get back to that. You all are being insane right now. Cut it out. And then he goes to, again, chasing safety. We dealt with the central issues of Ukraine that needs to be dealt with. You're impinging upon our security. You're on our border. That's an issue. We're not going to bring up Azerbaijan and Armenia right now. We're going to focus on Ukraine. He says Trump tries to get the history, which is precious. He said, this very dumb man is trying to understand the history of all of this. It's so precious. So precious. That's the funniest thing in the world to me. The U.S. has made great strides, but we need a long-term settlement. All legitimate concerns needs to be dealt with and needs to be balanced. Right? Now, Compare that statement to what has been coming out of Western media. Land swaps, land swaps. We just need land swaps. We need land swaps. There needs to be land swaps. What kind of land swaps? Are they going to have land swaps? Zelensky, I'm not doing land swaps. I'm not leaving the dumbass. What a dumb conversation in the context of what Russia has been saying for the last 3 years is their core concerns. You are expanding NATO to our border. Cut it out. Stop. Stop. He told you in 2008, stop. He told you in like 2012, stop. He told you before in 2022, stop. Nobody would stop. Nobody would listen. They said Russia doesn't get security concerns. Russia doesn't get a sphere of influence. We don't have to listen to Vladimir Putin. He can't tell us who can get into NATO and who can't get into NATO. This was the nonsense that they were effectively saying. And at the point where Putin says, okay. He enters a civil war on the other side of the West-backed putsch in Kiev. That's what happened. Let's be very clear on the history of it. So when they're like, land swaps, this is about land swaps, these people are idiots, or they're intentionally lying. And whatever Trump wants, an immediate, short-term tactic that would all things being equal, just be a trap and another Minsk 3, that is not what Putin is going for, because that is not what he wants. Nor does he trust the U.S. in a short-term context where he's going to take anybody's word for anything. The issue is you are impinging upon our borders. You're expanding and trying to surround us and put us in a Hobbes choice where either we accept you surrounding us militarily or we get involved. Both of those are poor choices. But between those two choices, we are muscular enough to get involved and change the context on the ground in a way that is going to wreck your life, which is what they did. That's what they did. So no, we're not taking your stupid land swaps. This is about long-term security interests and a security architecture of Europe moving forward. That's what this is about. So whatever they may agree upon in the, yes, you're going to get the 5 areas. Yes, we're going to maybe give up this. We're okay with fudging this. Yes, you're going to get no expansion of NATO. Meaning whatever those items are that may pertain specifically to Ukraine that they may agree upon, there are larger concerns. And in the context of those larger concerns, Trump is like, all right, I need to talk about this. I mean, this is my take. I could be wrong. We need to talk about this other stuff. We agree upon this, though. I'm going to take this to Europe. Notice, Putin said nothing about Zelensky. Zelensky is an illegitimate leader. From my perspective, from the Russian perspective, any deal that you make with an illegitimate leader can be undone by the next leader who would immediately say, that guy was illegitimate. Hell, we're going to put that guy in jail. We have nothing to do with that guy, so we don't have to deal with your agreements. That may also be one of the issues. Zelensky is illegitimate. We're not going to deal with him. In order to make some kind of deal, you need to get rid of him. And then, meaning that may be one of the provisions of whatever particular deal these guys are talking about. Again, I don't know. These deals are made in private. I'm pointing out that it seems like there is something on the table. And in the context of that something being on the table, Trump is like, I'm going to go to the Europeans. I'm going to talk about it. Trump being Trump utters the term, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. Nobody asked Trump that. Trump just said that. And I keep saying Trump has a tendency to say whatever's in the queue, meaning whatever is in the top part of his mind, he says it. And in that reveals a lot of what is going on in Trump's mind. So it does sound like they've come to some kind of agreement. It does sound like there's some kind of deal on the table. It does sound like that Russia was like, look, our concerns go beyond this. None of this stuff is going to be done until what we need is considered and what we need is dealt with. In Trump's case, he is probably saying nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon, because there are things in that deal that the Russians might have wanted, that Trump might have agreed upon, that he is pointing out none of this is real until all of this is real and all of this is settled, signed, etc., and set in stone. I'm going to go talk to the Europeans, and I will talk to you later. Now, again, it depends on what that deal is. It depends on what they're talking about. And it depends on, again, I have a hard time believing that Putin will come out here and just lie like that. And Trump will come out here and just lie. I don't know. I could be wrong. Let's watch it one more time just to get a second assessment on it.
The United States of America and the President of the Russian Federation.
Уважаемый господин
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. In good health and to see you alive." I think that is very neighborly. And I think that's some kind words that we can say to each other. We're separated by the Strait of Bering, though there are two islands only between the Russian island and the US island. They're only 4 kilometers apart. We're close neighbors, and it's a fact. It's also important that Alaska has to do with our common heritage, common history between Russia and the US, and many positive events have to do with that territory. Still, there is tremendous cultural heritage back from the Russian America. For example, Orthodox churches and a lot of more than 700 geographical names of Russian origin. During the Second World War, it was here in Alaska that was the origin of the legendary air bridge for the supply of military aircraft and other equipment under the Lend-Lease program. It was a dangerous and treacherous route over the vast emptiness of ice. However, the pilots of both countries did everything to bring closer the victory. They risked their lives and they gave it all for the common victory. I was just in the city of Magadan in Russia, and there is a memorial there dedicated to the Russian and the US pilots. And there are two flags, the US flag and the Russian flag. And I know that here as well, there is such a memorial. There is a military burial place several kilometers away from here. The Soviet pilots that buried there who died during that dangerous mission. We're thankful to the citizens and the government of the US for carefully taking care of their memory. I think that's very worthy and noble. We'll always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship that supported each other and facilitated each other. I'm sure that this heritage will help us rebuild and foster mutually beneficial and equal ties at this new stage, even during the hardest conditions. It is known that there have been no summits between Russia and the US for 4 years, and that's a long time. This time was very hard for bilateral relations, and let's be frank, they've fallen to the lowest point since the Cold War. I think that's not benefiting our countries and the world as a whole. It is apparent that sooner or later we had to amend the situation to move on from the confrontation to dialogue. And in this case, a personal meeting between the heads of state has been long overdue. Naturally, under the condition of serious and painstaking work, and this work has been done in general. Me and President Trump have very good direct contact. We've spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone. And special envoy of the president, Mr. Witkoff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time. And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine.
You stop there for a moment. Stop there for a moment. I don't think I've ever heard one grown man call another grown man precious. And it wasn't that he was calling Trump precious. It was Trump trying to understand the history of how this conflict started. It was precious. I wish I understood Russian to understand that in Russian. It's just funny. The high-pitched voice woman or guy, I don't know if it's a man or woman. They didn't have James Earl Jones. Somebody like a thundering voice. It was precious that Donald Trump was trying to understand this. His feeble brain trying to work through all of this like a hamster running in a wheel was the most precious thing I've ever seen. To give you point of reference, when I talk about Kayla's, when I talk about Kayla's, and I say, God, she's so attractive and yet so dumb. It's adorable. Notice I'm talking about a woman when I'm saying that. And the things that she's saying is so dumb that it's almost precious. It's just a little bit weird. We had that sent to a world leader. But that's okay. Let's keep going. That's not really the point. I would say, once again, to emphasize what's happening, though. Historical context, commonality. We shouldn't be this divided. We have a shared history. There were times we were able to fight together. Alaska was sold to you by Russia. Like, meaning he is trying to ground this moment in historical context. We don't have to be this divided. Second, beef up Trump's ego. Trump is trying to understand this. Trump is trying to get to the root of this. Trump is working diligently in order to come to some kind of a deal and agreement in a way that wasn't necessarily true prior. We appreciate him for doing that. A diplomat. That's a diplomat. That's what they do. That's how it works. Let's keep going.
Has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation. However strange it may sound in these conditions, we have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And
again, he is so good at this. So, again, a few things. We consider Ukraine a brotherly nation. We are one. Now, if you're in the Western press, that may be shocking to you. And they'd be like, what do you mean you're one? What do you mean you're brotherly nations? You're fighting and attacking a nation. Yes, but if Russia really, honestly wanted to fundamentally destroy Ukraine and turn it into Gaza, do you believe they didn't have the opportunity or potential to do that? Do you really believe that? They don't. They can't do it. They could. They could. But they don't. You would get 700 drones hitting Kiev and all of these other places, and it's like 2 people dead. Civilians. How do you do that if your objective is to avoid, or if your objective is not to avoid civilian casualties? I hope you get my point. This war, at some point, will be studied, and people will be shocked at the level and the degree to which Russia, with the overwhelming firepower that it has at its disposal, is able to avoid massive civilian casualties, which, if you look at Israel, is the case. Also, Crocus City Music Hall, where they killed, what, 700 people, something like that, that the United States obviously knew about, was behind, at the very least backed. That is effectively the number of people that Hamas was supposedly have killed. Israel has went on a murder spree of killing, what, 2/3 of all the deaths were civilians? And yet, in this war, the overwhelming majority of the people that killed soldiers with very small civilian casualty count. The point I'm trying to make is he's making this point of saying, look, this is not what we wanted. We consider Ukraine a close association to us. There's a family. It may not look like it now because this family is having a murderous disagreement, but we consider them a family. 2, but regardless of how we consider them, we have severe security needs that are being impinged upon, that need to be met. Regardless of anything else, we will deal with our security needs. And until those security needs are met, nothing happens. We will keep going. He's grounding this stuff in we have issues that need to be resolved that, let's be very honest, you all are directly responsible for. I'm too much of a diplomat to say it, but I'm pointing it out. Our issues need to be resolved. And those issues are long-term, overarching, dealing with the security architecture of Europe. Full stop. It's what he wants. It's what he's striving for. Every word that is coming out of his mouth is hitting at the main point. We have security needs that need to be met. We want to end this war. Again, if you're watching Western media, Western press, we don't think Putin wants to end the war. We think Putin wants to keep going. We think Putin is this. We think Putin is that. There is nothing that could be dumber in analysis than that. If they don't get that the entire point of this was an exercise in creating safety, then they shouldn't be analysts or analysts. Putin, in this moment, is chasing safety. And every word that is coming out of his mouth is pointing to that fact. I am doing this for the safety and security of Russia. Full stop. I want an end to this. I want a just and lasting peace. I want a new security architecture of Europe where our security needs are taken into effect. And Ukraine's. Period. That's what I want. If I can't get that, I will keep shooting Nazis in the face until we do. Even if that means we go to the border, even if it means we're in a guerrilla war for 10 years, we will do that. It's not what we want. But if you force that as our only outcome, our only corner, we will take that corner. Like, I hope you get my point. I'm trying to nail this point down that these people who are doing analysis, screaming that Putin doesn't want to stop. Putin is a warmonger. Putin just wants all of Ukraine. These people are idiots. You can listen to what he's saying here. They've been consistent the entire time for the last 3 years in a way that all of these other people necessarily haven't. And even in the speech, as he's talking to the president, as he's talking to America, we want safety and we want peace. We are not going to accept peace if it means we are unsafe. We want safety. And we have the military capability to do it. Let's keep going.
Agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
I want to hear that part one more time. 4817, because I want to make sure I get this right. 48, let's go to 4801.
And capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works.
I hope the agreement that we reached will not be torpedoed and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. Okay, again, what is this agreement? I hope you get my point. That's what I'm saying. I get that there are going to be some very cynical people who say nothing was accomplished. This was a nothing burger. Putin came here and told Trump no. That's not what he said. He very clearly said, I hope the agreement that we reach. Now, what is that agreement? Is it minor? Is it something very tiny? Like, hey, I promise that I will wear blue socks on Tuesday. Or is it something a little bit more substantial? Trump is taking that agreement to Europe. I don't think he would take the whole socks agreement to Europe. It sounds like there is something that they've come up with, or at the very least, something that they've agreed upon. I just don't know what that agreement is, or the scale and scope of that particular agreement. They're being hushed about it. I get the sense if it was something like super minor, like we won't fire long-range missiles at moving cars. That's what we've agreed upon. And Trump is like, see, we have a success. No more hitting moving cars. This sounds like it's more. This sounds like it's more. It sounds like there's certain things that the US and Russia basically can say, okay, we have agreement on these things. And then we have these other things that I need to consult with Europe with. And I'll get back to you. We're not going to mention this. We're not going to talk about it. This is going to be private until it's resolved. I could be wrong. I'm just pointing out. I'm going by what he said. And again, you could say he's lying, or you could say it's super minor, but I don't know how you would know that. I'll play it one more time.
Of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the US and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the US can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the US. Overall,
that part is interesting also, because why are you telling me that? Right? Why are you telling me that? It sounds like he's pointing out, okay, two things. And Pink Rose, no agreement is reached until everything is reached. So no, they haven't come to a deal or an agreement to stop. War still goes on. Nazis are still being shot in the face. Russia's still advancing on all fronts. No. That part is interesting though. No agreement is going to be made on anything else until the Ukraine war is solved. When Russia was talking about that, saying, what are we going to be talking about during the meeting? Yes, Ukraine is going to figure prominently in the meeting. However, we are also going to be talking about weapons treaties. We're going to be talking about business things. I mean, Dmitry Kirillov was there. So it's like we have a box of things that we are talking about. But Ukraine first. Ukraine needs to be solved. So I strongly suspect that the reason why Putin is saying this is to say, look, there's an agreement on the table, or there's an offer on the table. Let's say it that way. In the context of that offer, certain things have been agreed upon. Certain things have not been agreed upon. You need to consult with Europe in order to figure out your response to what we've put down on the table. Meaning they're having negotiations. It's what negotiations are, right? And he's trying to make the point of saying, by the way, there are so many things we can work on together. The Arctic, space, business deals. You can make a lot of money in Russia. All of these other things are there for us to work on, for us to cooperate on. Hint, hint, Ukraine. Solve this. Pot of money. Solve this. Pot of money. You want a golf course? We have a lot of land for a golf course. You want to build a building? We have a lot of land for a building. You can do that. You want a golden boat, golden airplane? You may be able to get that golden airplane. Hint, hint, Ukraine. Meaning there are benefits and bonuses in the cooperation between the United States and Russia if indeed you can solve the issue of Ukraine. I think it's that. Because otherwise it's like, why are you telling me this? None of that stuff is going to happen until the Ukraine war is resolved. So yeah, we put a deal on the table. Yeah, we've told you what we needed in order to make this go away, in order to make this war stop. And you're going to go talk to Europe. And if you come back with something favorable, well, we can actually put this to bed. There are other things that we can negotiate on and agree upon that will be in the best interest for America and ultimately also potentially in our best interest. Again, this doesn't sound like, hey, if we agree to stop firing long-range missiles, then we can have a business relationship. That doesn't sound right, especially considering the first part of his speech of we have long-term security issues that we need to be resolved, that needs to be balanced, and we're not agreeing upon anything until those long-term things are effectively dealt with. That doesn't sound like, and then to say later on in his speech, where all of this stuff is said within the same context, and all of this is a political speech, very specific. We can agree to not fire missiles at each other. That doesn't sound right. I'm very curious on what this agreement is that they are talking about and bouncing back and forth. I'm wondering if any of that stuff gets leaked. Yeah, I'm wondering if any of it gets leaked. Let's keep going. I want to finish it.
It's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the US, there is a so-called international date line. I think you can step over literally from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope that will succeed in that, in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the president of the US has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the US. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike, and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on. Most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will.
Again, right there, right there, right there. That is a fascinating comment. I mean, for Trump to come in and say, Mr. President, that was a profound speech. I don't know, profound. It was a good one. It's a political speech. He's a diplomat. And it is very specific, targeted to the point that he's trying to make. A man being very articulate. Trump comes in and says, that was a profound speech. There are many things that we've agreed upon. There are big things that we've agreed upon. I haven't got there yet. Meaning we weren't able to sit here and say, yes, I wasn't able to seal the deal yet. But there are things we've agreed upon. And we've moved the ball forward significantly. However, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Putin says, we have an agreement. I hope that agreement is not torpedoed by Europe when you take it to Europe. Trump has already said, whatever we talk about, we're going to take it to Europe. So something's on the table. Trump says, hey, we've agreed upon a lot. And yet there are certain things that we still haven't necessarily come to terms on. I'm going to take it to Europe. Just be aware, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. Meaning, everything that we've agreed upon in this meeting could go up in smoke. If indeed the conversation we have with Europe fails. But it's obvious that there's something on the table. That's fascinating. That's interesting. That is interesting. Now, again, I just want to be very clear on this. I would wager to you, based on Putin's speech, that what he wants is long-term security arrangements and a security architecture of Europe that ensures Russia is safe. That's what he wants. Now, what would he give to get it? That's an interesting question. But that's what he wants. And so any of this talk about, well, let's do land swaps, let's trade this, let's trade that, that stuff is minor in comparison to we need a long-term security arrangement, which is probably the thing that Donald Trump is going to have to go to Europe to talk about. That's fascinating. God, I wish I was a fly in that room. Let's keep going. Let's finish this out.
Call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate. And I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian.
Again, it's up to them. He says, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. It's up to them. I'm going to call Zelensky and Europe. Ultimately, they have to agree on the things that my team has negotiated. So they've negotiated something. I know I'm trying to drill this point home. I'm trying to drill this point home because, again, there's going to be a lot of people who says, nothing burger, nothing is here, folks, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm saying that's not true. I'm saying that's not true. And either you believe that Putin would put something on the table that wasn't in his best interest that they hadn't thought about, that is a mince three, et cetera, or that what they're putting on the table is dealing with their core concerns. And dealing with those core concerns in a more holistic fashion, which I don't think that they will do amidst three. Whatever Trump has come up with in regards to his team, as he points out, my marvelous team has agreed, come up with some kind of agreement. We're going to take it to Europe. We're going to see what Europe thinks. It's up to them. It's up to them. The other part to this is, what if they don't agree? What if Europe says, F that, we're not doing that? Does Trump walk? Does this give Trump the ability to say, we agreed to put the Russians on this stuff. We took it to Europe. We thought it was a good agreement. Europe balked. So, you're all horrible people. I'm leaving. I'm Trump. Come to my golf course. Does Trump walk? That's an interesting question, especially considering it seems like they have some nascent agreement that they effectively agreed upon. Otherwise, why would you mention your team? What would you have to take to Europe if indeed you didn't have some kind of agreement? So, yeah, sounds like they have something. Sounds like this wasn't a nothing burger. Sounds like they came up with something. They're feeling each other out, as they say. It seems like it's gone more than just feeling each other out.
Business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax that made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that.
Oh, that is interesting too. Trump is, I got to be honest, I don't like when Trump speaks, if I'm being just bluntly honest. By the same token, part of it is because he lies so much. But the things that are on his mind come out because he's usually all over the place. He's spitballing. And when you spitball, sometimes things that you don't intend to come out, come out. I don't know if this is one of those situations. Obviously, Donald Trump was bothered by the Trump and Russia stuff. But he's like, look, I have to deal in a difficult political environment. Trump and Russia is a pain in my ass. And everything I do gets put in that context. So me trying to come to you and make a deal becomes more difficult because of it. But he also points out, Putin gets what I have to deal with. It sounds like, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it sounds like he's saying, the shit that I say sometimes is directly related to the environment that I'm in. So when I'm screaming, oh, I'm going to punish Russia, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, if they don't make a deal, I'm going to be very angry. Oh, I'm very angry at Putin. No, I don't understand why Putin is acting the way Putin is acting. It's almost sound like he's saying, he gets why I'm doing that. He gets why I have to say that. Whether I mean it or not, he gets why I have to say it. This is the political environment in which I have to function. They make my life more difficult. But Russia, Putin, who's a politician, understands why I say and do those things. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But obviously, Putin as a politician knows the environment that Donald Trump is in. He knows about the Trump and Russia stuff. He knows that they blame him for overturning the U.S. election and destroying democracy in America. And yeah, Tulsi Gabbard putting that information out. As I said, when it first came out, this gives Trump more latitude because he can say, all of this stuff was a hoax, all of this stuff was fake. Now let me make my deal. Those things were not unrelated to one another. As I put out in that video actually did pretty well. The point I'm trying to make here is it's almost like Trump is pointing out he gets that I have to function in a political environment that demonizes Russia, making any deal that I make that much more difficult. And for that matter, just existing in this environment when I'm saying I'm trying to get a deal. He gets it. He gets it. He's a politician. Let's keep going.
during the course of his career. He's seen it all. But we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax. But what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire.
What is that one? What is that one? Oh, what is that one? What is that one? What is that one? I am super curious about that one. Look, for the first time, they're in real negotiations. That's good. Trump has to corral the worst aspects of himself, which means I'm not taking questions. I'm not going to let you ask me anything. We're in negotiations in earnest, and I need to effectively deal with the Europeans, who will most likely blab because they want to put the kibosh and they want to play spoiler. But from Trump's point of view, how can you answer questions in this situation? Meaning, you didn't get the deal. You didn't come to exact terms and the things that you wanted, but you made progress, and you made significant progress. What can you really say to the media in this case? Hey, did you guys do so-and-so? I can't answer that. We're in the middle of negotiations. So it's not shocking that they didn't necessarily take questions at the end of this. It's one thing if they can say, we got a deal, we're going to end the war, we're doing this, we're doing that, et cetera, this is all the information. Okay, that's one thing, right? But that's not where they are. It sounds like where they are is there are most of the things we've agreed upon. There's an offer on the table. I'm going to take that offer to Europe. We, the US and Russia, we have basic agreement. There's other stuff that we have not agreed upon, which is one very big item. I'm going to talk to the Europeans, and we're going to see where we come up. My team, however, was instrumental in coming to an agreement with their team. This is our united proposal, and what we want and what we think ends it, or at the very least comes to a conclusion in trying to end it. The one big item we need to talk about and we need to discuss and we need to work through further. We're going to go to Europe. We're going to go to Zelensky. We're going to see what they say. Zelensky matters less. He matters less. He's a proxy. He doesn't have a sovereign control of his government. If Zelensky gets out of line, Zelensky will be removed from this planet. And I don't mean on a spaceship. I mean from this physical matter reality plane of existence. Or he will be put in a cage. He will not entirely be a problem. Europe is different depending upon what they're trying to accomplish. If what that big thing is some new security architecture of Europe, then Europe has to say yes. Kind of. Now, Trump could ultimately say, well, fine, I'm walking, and try to corral them or cajole them into it. Maybe. He can always walk. That's the rub, right? Depending upon how much energy Donald Trump wants to put into this, are they really going to say no to daddy? If they could say no to daddy, then they wouldn't be in that humiliating business arrangement in regards to the European Union. And from the standpoint of Zelensky, again, he's a proxy. Ultimately, Trump always has the capability to walk, or tariffs, or sanctions, or whatever. That would be pretty extreme, but he can do it. If he needs to push Europe into something, he can push Europe into something up to a certain point. So I'm very curious on what that big thing is. I mean, granted, Europe can always just say no. They can grow a backbone at the last minute. No, we're not doing that. We're not taking that. We're not accepting that, et cetera. In which case, fine. You deal with this. We're out. No more money. No more intelligence. No more anything. you deal with this. In which case, they will fail miserably and Ukraine will collapse much, much faster. He always has the whip hand of walking. I am super curious what the big thing is. What do you guys think the big thing is? I'm super curious what that big thing is. I don't know what that big thing is. If he walks and takes the CIA, the mercenaries, and the satellite surveillance, it ends quickly. Yes. Yes, it's that. So the dependent, meaning you will know Trump's seriousness by whether or not he's willing to walk. And he can really make the argument of basically, I've done everything I could. My team came up with a good agreement and a good deal. We did. You don't want to accept it. You want to play spoiler. Fine. I'm out. I'm out. Now, oceans of ink has been spent on this idea that the Europeans can't carry this alone and that the Europeans require the Americans in order to make this work. Trump is not serious about anything. What is the point of this delusional bullshit? See, look, again, as I point out, people will have a cynical take on this, which I understand. Trump is not ethical. Trump is not moral. Trump is not a good person. Trump is not trying to end this because he cares. It's not, oh, I care about the people who are losing their lives. Take all of that out of it. None of that matters. And I know that sounds brutal, but none of it matters. What's your name? Gabby? Yeah, Gabby. None of that matters. None of it matters. I've made no argument about ethics or morality. I've made no argument about caring about lives. I've made no argument about Trump, his heart growing 3 inches bigger after talking to Putin. I've made no argument like that. What I am pointing out to you is that there are physical matter realities that are happening on the battlefield that matter. That matter. It is deeply humiliating to the United States to fundamentally lose a war in brimming terms that the world can see. In every other context where Ukraine was about to lose a catastrophic loss, European leaders, or in this case, an American leader, wanted to negotiate. The pattern was always the same. It is how you got Minsk 1 and 2. It is how you got the Istanbul agreements. In both of those situations, they were losing and were going to lose or buckle, in which case Europe and the US threw their body out saying, wait a minute, let's actually talk. I'm trying to point out to you that the same situation is happening now with Ukraine about to lose the Donbass. Between losing the Donbass on the battlefield, which will happen as Russians shoot grandmas, grandpas, elderly people, handicapped people, thick-necked Nazis, all of them get shot in the face, one by one, as Russia triumphantly marches all through Donbass, capturing Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Petrovsk, Konstantinivka, capturing all of these places, meaning they are going to do it. Look at what is taking place on the battlefield. Trump is not having this meeting in a vacuum. He's not having this meeting because he wants to. He's not having this meeting because he's living light. This meeting is taking place in the context of a war that the U.S. provoked and that the U.S. and Europe are losing. That is the context. Now, what you need to ask is, well, why is Trump doing this? Is he doing it for his health? Is he giving 50 days for himself? Is he giving 12 days for himself? Is he giving 10 days for himself? Is he doing this panicky, let's meet? Any other situation where Donald Trump had an advantage, what did he do? He pressed his advantage. If the U.S. was winning and Ukraine was being triumphant in its movement eastward, do you honestly believe that Donald Trump will be sitting here having this meeting? The answer is no. He's having this meeting because he has to. If he does not, Ukraine continues to get further eaten alive on the battlefield, getting weaker and weaker until their forces collapse. Kramatorsk and Slavyansk is the last defensive line in Donbass. After that, you have open steppe. That is the context that we are talking about. I understand you're feeling cynical. Cynical is not a political position. It's not. If you just have a flat point of view in every situation that takes place, that is not analysis. That is just a flat point of view on every situation. As a broken clock, you may be right, often because of how fucked up our world is. But in looking at political events and everything else, that is not a point of view. A point of view is looking at why something is taking place and asking, why is this taking place? Is this happening in a vacuum? No. It is happening because of what is that? Again, it feels like the Matrix, right? Neo goes, sees the architect, and Neo says, why am I here? Architect gives him a bullshit answer. You didn't answer my question, why am I here? Interesting, you said this faster than the others. What do you mean others? You are here because every man, woman, child, dog, cat, every Nazi is going to be destroyed. And you are here to try to stop it. It's that. So again, it's not about once. It's not about love and light. Not about any of that stuff. It's not even about Donald Trump trying to end it for all time. The United States is not going to stop its attempt at primacy. They're going to do any and everything in their power to accomplish their objectives. It is the reason why they're making deals with Armenia and Azerbaijan and the soft underbelly right now in the South. In the specific context of world domination that they were trying to accomplish using Ukraine as a tool to do it, they are failing. And because they are failing, they are using this as a tactic in order to create some kind of ceasefire, some kind of freeze of the conflict, some kind of something of this needs to freeze. We can't let this get worse. Now, Europe may say, F that. F that. We don't care about those Ukrainians. Fuck those Ukrainians. We don't even care if Russia takes all of Ukraine. Hell, we may prefer it as opposed to you coming to some kind of agreement and some kind of new security architecture. We may prefer it because if the goal is to extend or overextend Ukraine or Russia, in this case, forcing Russia to take it all and move to the border and then fight a guerrilla war for 10 years, accomplishes that objective, as opposed to you coming up trying to make some deal. So it matters. It's not trivial. It's not. They're just meeting for shits and giggles. Trump is panicky and desperate to get a meeting for no reason. It wasn't Putin that asked for the meeting. It was Trump. So I appreciate your point of view, but I think your point of view is wrong. I think it's cynical. Cynicism, in many respects, ends up being right just because, again, we have a fucked up world. But not in every case. Just telling you. Just telling you. Trump wants the deal to look good. Trump wants the deal to look good and to not have the situation in Ukraine utterly and entirely collapse. That's what he wants. And again, just to be very clear, it's not a deal for all time. The U.S. will get rid of any deal when it believes it has an advantage and can do so. Whatever deal they make, that has to be baked into it. And it's very possible that it's going to be impossible for a U.S. president to accept the terms that Russia will set. That's possible too. But this is not a nothing. It may end up being a nothing while the war continues. But I don't get the sense this is a nothing. I just don't. I disagree with you. I disagree. Cynicism is an original sense. It's just radical honesty. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. To the world, look, if you want to be John Bolton and you make this argument that to the entire world, it's a hammer, it looks like a nail, well, that's nonsense. That is taking a very specific point of view where you have the same point of view on every event. That's a cynical point of view, right? Every event that I see, I'm taking this point of view. Well, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's like the world is too complicated. So I'm going to dumb it down and just take this point of view. Yeah, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. The cynical point of view may be correct in certain situations. In others, it won't be. That's just life. It's like life is not, your reality. Reality doesn't care about your point of view. It just doesn't. But Putin will accept nothing less. Putin will accept nothing less than core demands. Yes, agreed. Trump will not meet those core demands. Depends on what those core demands are. It depends on whether, look, it depends. It depends. Every leader that is in a conflict, that's in a war, that is in some kind of political rhetoric, they state their absolute demands. They're stark, they're clear, and they're often maximalists, whether they sound maximalist or not. So Joe Biden will come out and say, we're with you for as long as it takes. We're with you for as long as it takes. Joe Biden also will come out, we're fighting for Israel, or we're fighting to get the hostages out, and we're fighting tirelessly to end the conflict. Same Joe Biden also will come out. What was the other one? I'm staying in this race. I'm in it for the long haul. I don't care what these people say. F these people. I'm in this race. I'm going to run this race for president. Did he run the race for president? No. Was he with Ukraine for as long as it takes? Well, obviously, the U.S. has a tendency to pull out of things when it finds those things to be unproductive. So the answer, once again, was no. We are not going to be with you for as long as it takes. Europe is getting sick of dealing with Ukraine. Vance came out. We are no longer giving you money. You can buy weapons from us, but we're not giving you money. I'm trying to point out that all of this rhetoric was maximalist in regards to what they were going to do with this infinite confidence that they were trying to project, despite the fact that all of those things were wrong. Putin is a politician. And if you think of the interviews that I've had with Mark, what does Mark say? The thing that freaks him out about Putin is that he's usually always willing to make a deal. That is the thing that freaks him out. So yes, there are core demands. Obviously, in that conversation, those core demands were put to Trump. Clearly, unabashedly. But it sounds like Trump agreed with many of those things. That's what it sounds like. Now, again, Europe can say, go F off. They can do that. And you can even make an argument that Russia wants to create a context where Trump will walk. Meaning, we'll have a conversation with you, we'll agree to this, we have this agreement that we need, et cetera, et cetera. Russia knows that there's certain things that will never get agreed upon. By the same token, having a good conversation with Trump and coming to some agreement on many of these other things, that it may create a context where Trump says, you're all miserable people, I'm walking. And Russia's like, yes, thank you. Let's finish this thing. There are multiple things that could be taking place in this moment. We don't know because we don't know what that big thing is that they haven't come to agreement on. But the fact that they've walked out there saying there's a proposal on the table and that the proposal was primarily agreed upon between both groups, that's interesting. That is interesting. That is interesting. But nothing is taking place. They'll continue to shoot one Nazi in the face after the next, after the next, after the next, inexorably moving westward, continuing on the battlefield. And whereas they may say no now, what happens when they take Kiev? What happens when they take Odessa? What happens when they start adding more and more territory, having more and more referendums? Like, Look, I would tell you, I agree with you in this sense. From the Russian point of view, they're settling this on the battlefield. That is their point of view. These negotiations are nice. We don't believe that this could be resolved through negotiations. So what we're going to do is continue to do what we're doing on the battlefield. We're winning on the battlefield. We are destroying the enemy. We're denazifying Ukraine. That's what we're doing. If you want to make a deal, we're always open to make a deal if it deals with our core concerns. They've always said, they've said it from the very beginning. We will negotiate with you. We would prefer not to be in a war. We would negotiate if our core concerns are met in the context of those negotiations. They've said it. They've been open to it all the way through. They've been clear on what those terms were. Trump can no longer say he doesn't know Russia's terms. He can no longer say that he doesn't know what's taking place. He can no longer be in press conferences saying, I didn't hear that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. That is over with. You accept their terms or you don't. Now, did they give the U.S. a surrender document? It sounds like there was fudge factor in the context of those negotiations, which kind of goes back to my point about maximalist demands. Whatever you want to think of Putin, he's a politician. And in the context of being a politician, I would wager to you that he knows he's not going to get everything that he wants, but built in the context of what he says he wants are core needs. We will keep shooting people in the face if we don't get these core needs met. If you meet our core needs, there are other things that we're willing to negotiate. Now, he may take a maximalist approach when he's making speeches, when he's talking, when he's being very strong and everything else. But he also may know that what he needs, what he wants is his core demands, and he can sell the other stuff in a way that Donald Trump is going to have to sell whatever deal they come up with, if indeed they came up with a deal. So he's not God man, he's a politician, all things being equal. And politicians, they're squirrely, they're fuzzy, you know. But no, nobody should have any doubts that under no circumstances can he negotiate on his core issues. Those 5 territories are Russia's, period. No expansion of NATO, period. Those are core. Protection for the Russian speakers, the church, and those type of things. And it may even include getting rid of the Zelensky government. But again, it's like if you get rid of him, you just put him in with another Nazi. So there may be certain things in that that's fudgeable, but I have no doubt. But the core demand stuff, also have no doubt that Russia is going to continue on the battlefield. Have no doubt that they are perfectly willing to continue on the battlefield in the context of not getting what they want in negotiations. I guess my point to you, or the point that I'm trying to make more than anything else, for people who are like, this is an exercise in futility. Is it a better option from the Trump administration's point of view that Ukraine collapses? Or is it a better option to try to save face with a deal that he can sell? Which one? Which one? Which one? Which one do you think? Because that is the basis of all of this. That is the basis of all of this. All right. All right. We have come to the end. I know there are going to be multiple points of view on this. I could entirely be wrong. I'm just going by what they're saying in regards to the analysis. I haven't read anything around it. But no, I don't think it was a nothing burger. No, I don't think it was futile. No, I don't think it's a negative to negotiate. No, I don't think Russia is going to compromise on its core demands, whatever those core demands are. No, I don't think what Putin is asking is maximalist, but I do think he's a politician, and in the context of what he's asking for, there's probably flexible things that he's willing to negotiate around. Can a U.S. president accept Russian demands? I don't know. We're going to find out. How strong is Trump willing to be to push this? Is another question. Is Trump willing to walk? He keeps saying it. Is he willing to do it? You're horrible people. Does this give him pretext to do it? We came up with a deal. We thought the deal was fair. The Europeans don't want to take it. So we are now walking and we're leaving this conflict. Something that I strongly suspect people wanted to do for a very long time, didn't want to get blamed for Ukraine losing. Does this create a context and, let's say, a pretext where he can do so with an argument of, I tried. I did everything I could. We came up with a deal. Those Europeans, these dumb people, wouldn't accept my deal. People like this. I love this. This is the most precious thing in the world to me right now. She is living in my head.
Than Russia is. So if you're then China is so much bigger economy than Russia is, with so much bigger military than Russia is. So if you're saying that you're not able to beat, that we collectively are not able to really pressure Russia so much that it would have an effect, because then how do you say that you're able to take on China risk?
God, she is so pretty and dumb. It is just great. It is great. She is so pretty and dumb. But those are the European leaders. When Trump is calling Europe, he is going to be talking to dingbats like that. And dingbats like that, who is losing a war in Ukraine, but is already looking to their next war to lose with China, are some of the goofballs that he is going to be talking to. Yeah, she's pretty and dumb. Sugar, she's very pretty and dumb. It's pressure.
China is so much bigger economy than Russia is.
I love this
with
video.
So much bigger military than Russia is. So if you're saying that you're not able to beat, that we collectively are not able to really pressure Russia so much that it would have an effect, because then how do you say that you're able to take on China risk? China is so much bigger economy than Russia is, with so much bigger military than Russia is.
Oh, she's so pretty and dumb. It's like boo, shh, shh. It's like shh, 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 shh. Just sit there for me. Just sit there for me. Don't talk. Don't talk. Yeah, I don't like it. You're telling me not to. Could you please just shut the fuck up? Just let me look at you. Oh, that's funny. The thoughts flow from her legs to her brain. Oh, God. It's like, just don't talk. Please don't talk. Just sit there and look pretty for me. Just sit there and look pretty for me. But I have a brain. I have a mind. I'm not right brain. Just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. All right. I'm going to end this because at this point I'm joking, Kayla's. Sexy goose. Yeah. Sexy goose. She sounds like a Valley girl, even though she's from Estonia. Yeah. You're ruining my fantasy. She wrote a book? No way. No way she wrote a book. Are you serious? Oh, I got to get that book. That has to be the funniest thing in the world. That has to be the funniest thing in the world. That's my alarm. I'm sorry. I have to get that. But basic point. Trump is taking whatever he's got to the Europeans. Who knows what that's going to be? We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. I gave you all the questions that were put forth. I gave you all the stuff that seems to be clear, or seems to be obvious from the meeting itself. We'll see. Crazy chicks are fun for the short term. Yeah, man, but you have to eat dinner with her. And she's going to be talking to you and saying stuff and things, wants you to listen to her. And you're going to be thinking, God, you're so dumb. You're just so dumb. But you can never tell her that, because the moment that you tell her that, she's going to get offended. So, what is that? Very short term. Very short term. Yeah. Yeah, she's very attractive. I give her that. She wrote a book about makeup and lip gloss. Are you joking me, or are you serious? I mean, I can't even tell. I can't even tell if you're being serious. I can't even tell. Don't put a ring on it. Don't put a ring on it. Look, truth be told, that may just be normal in Estonia. That may be normal in Estonia. Go to McDonald's and you have, it's like idiocy. She's the brightest thing that they got. Can you imagine that? Planet of the Apes. Wang Yi. Oh, I don't know. And stop calling me. And stop calling me. Like she's leaving messages on the answer machine. I just wanted to talk to you. I thought we were a thing. You said I was smart, and I just really like you. And it's like, oh God, trying to get away from you, trying to get away. I have to go to Estonia, Jamal. Really? That's what you want? A dumb, pretty girl? Is that what you want? Is that what you really want? Is that what you want? Yeah, I'm being brutal right now. Yes, I'm being brutal. If you sit and pontificate, if we can't beat Russia, and we're Europe, we're all of these countries together, we're all of NATO. If we can't beat Russia, then how are we going to beat China? I mean, I just don't understand. It's confusing to me. How are we going to do that? I don't get it. I mean, we're prepared for a war with China. And so we got to be able to beat Russia. It's like, dude, will you shut up? Will you shut up? Will you shut up? Just sit there and look pretty. All right, let's end this. You all have a fantastic day. Interesting press conference. Have a good one, guys. Be safe. Be kind to the degree that you can be kind. And I know I'm saying be kind while I am brutally bashing that woman. I did say to the degree that you can be kind. Have a good one, all. Estonia's really gone downhill. I've never been. I'm super curious. This is like really Planet of the Apes. Just idiocy. They're like, Callis is so smart. She is so man. She wrote that book. She was talking about Putin and going after China. She's so smart, ain't she? So smart. Yeah, she's so smart. She's the smartest person in Estonia. She is so great. She's such a good person. She's her intelligence is her greatest quality. She is a model for the world of Estonia. That's what she is. Like, is that what you say at McDonald's when you go to Estonia? Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes. Probably not, Brian. Would you really let her be around the stove? Like, honest to God, do you really let this woman anywhere near an open fire, an open stove?
That you're not able to beat, that we collectively are not able to really pressure Russia so much that it would have an effect, because then how do you say that you're able to take on China risk? China is so much bigger economy than Russia is, with so much bigger military than Russia is. So if you're saying that you're not able to beat, that we collectively are not able to really pressure Russia so much that it would have an effect, because then how do you say that you're able to take on China risk? China is.
Do you really let her near stove or knife? I'd be at pains to let her near a butter knife, let alone a stove. So no, I don't think she can cook. No, I don't think she can fix a sandwich. But God, she's gorgeous. Oh my God, I love her. The leader of Estonia. She's so smart. She's so smart. She is so smart. I want her. Red Axis. Okay, Red Axis, you're saying that now. You're saying that now. Goose legs. Her legs are great. Yeah, I don't see that. I think it's just, how do you say that? Like, that's an amazing thing to say. Like, how you're pontificating that. But no, I would not let her near a butter knife. No, I will not let her near a hot stove. Yes, she's very attractive. I would not let her meet my friends. My mom is very patient, so okay. But yeah, it's like, you have to be like, you're so smart. I know Europe has to be able to take on China and Russia, and we got to be able to do this. I mean, we're collective Europe. I mean, Europe is we're just so fantastic. We're a garden, and Putin is such a bad guy, and Russia is so big, and we need to break it into smaller parts because Estonia is very small, and we need Russia to be very small so we can deal with the individual components. It's just too big, and Putin, he rides those bears. And he's bare chested, and he's such a sexy old man. Oh, wait, that's it. I'm sorry. I mean, he just rides those bears, and it terrifies me. It gives me size envy, and I don't even have a penis. It's just, we need to break Russia up. It's too big. And we need to take on China. And China is so much bigger, and we can't. If we can't be one, how do we be the other? I'm just exhausted. I don't know. These questions are just so hard for me. It's like, you're so smart. You're so smart. You really think I'm smart? Yes. Really? Because people never tell me that. They always just tell me I'm beautiful. No, you're so smart. You're just so smart. I think you're brilliant. Tell me more about, beating Russia and taking on China. Oh, really? Would you like to go back to my hotel room? You sound smart, so yeah, okay. Do you have coffee? Yes, we have coffee. Yeah, we have coffee. All right. I'm fucking around. I'm totally fucking around. I'm sorry. All right. I'm going to say like. I'm going to say share. Subscribe. You guys are fantastic. I will see you a bit later. And I guess we'll see the analysis from the meeting. Europe is probably going to spill the beans, especially if it's something they don't like. They're going to out it almost immediately. Zelensky is going to bitch and moan. But we'll see. We will see what happens. Read her book. Oh man, I don't think I'm that committed to the cause. There was a woman that I work with. I'll say that. It was a woman I work with. And she wrote this book. And by the way, this is not a woman thing. It's like the men in Europe, they can dumb it up just like anybody else. So this is not me picking on her as a woman. I just want to make that very clear. I could do this with Starmer. I could do this with Rando Man, Mark Root. When I'm pointing her out, I'm saying there are a list, a carnival of goofballs and lunatics in Europe that say stupid stuff like this. I'm not picking on her because she's a woman. I just think she's attractive, and so she's easier for me to look at as I'm poking fun. There was a book that was written by a woman that I used to work with. My ex didn't like this woman because my ex, like many women who could be very jealous, think everybody wants your man. It's like, dude, in real life, that's not true. In real life, that's not true. It's not like, it's like some men who are homophobic thinks that all gay men want them for some reason. It's like, dude, why do you think that? Why do you think that? You're like 400 pounds. You have a beard. You have a beer gut. You're absurd, right? It's like, that is not the case. But whatever. A little jealousy is good. It builds the ego. A lot of it, not so much. It becomes pain in the ass. And It's basically insecurity. But she picks up the woman's book and she says, dude, you have to read this book. It's like, what do you mean? She says, dude, you have to read this book. That book was amazing. And I don't mean that in the good sense. I mean that in the, whoa, somebody put this down on paper. I mean it in that sense. It's like somebody actually wrote this. And even more fantastic, it got published. Holy shit, that's a wow. My ex has an Austrian accent because she's Austrian. And she would read the book to me because I love the accent. The things that were in that book were just amazing. Look, I don't even want to go into it because I don't want to expose who the person is. But Jesus, the shit people say in books. Lots of crap get published. Yes, but it's... Look, you know, on the show, I tend to expose a lot. I tend to be very transparent about stuff that's going on in my life. When I was with my wife, she'd come on the show. I would bring up stuff about my ex-wife, ex-relationships, current stuff that I deal with. If I'm pissed off about something, I bring it up. I am not good at non-transparency on the show. I think it's because when I started off on YouTube as a YouTuber and then went to radio. But as a YouTuber, you're exposing yourself. A lot of that stuff is just you. Even if you're doing news, it's just you. It's your life. You, in some respects, share your life with the audience to degrees, right? But in my case, it tends to be a little bit much. My boss one time was like, hey, can you not bring up shit like that on your show when you have to work with these people? It was something that happened with my team in Political Misfits. And I was very pissed off about it. And I was gloating a bit on my show saying, and these people actually asked me if they can stay on my channel. They are out of their minds. They're out. And my boss was like, hey, I think it's frowned upon. They're not going to like you if you do that. Fair enough. I'm not going to expose the book. I will say that. Can't say that either. It was a book effectively about when you start off a book and you're making the argument, it's not that I'm a gold digger, it's that you don't have enough money. Oh, that's profound. That's profound. It's not that I'm a gold digger. I just need nice things. And in the context of me needing nice things, the only reason you have an issue with me needing nice things is because you don't have the money to support me wanting those nice things. It's like, wow, that's how it starts. That's how it starts. Yeah, that's how it starts. But then you get reality asserting itself, where, let's say, various things that this person was calling those other women, she became herself because her life hit the skids. The book is amazing. I think we read the entirety of the book. At one point, they were telling like how much of a Christian they were. I'm a Christian girl. I believe in the church. And then at the end of the book, or let's say in the middle part of the book, it's exposed. I'm having a relationship with a married man. It's like, what the fuck? How are you putting this in a book? How are you putting this in a book? And it's like, he was taking advantage of me. How was he taking advantage of you? He was taking advantage of me because he was paying for my education. He was paying for where I lived. He had a wife and several kids, but he wouldn't offer me a job at his company. Really? That's how he was taking advantage of you? He was paying for your life, even your schooling. But because he wouldn't offer you a job, and he didn't want you close to him because he was having an affair with you, that is him taking an advantage. Okay. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. It was just fascinating. When people are writing books, they're telling their worldview. It's like a music album, right? Or it's like a YouTube channel. Any YouTube channel, any music album, it is a world. It is a reality that is being superimposed on physical reality, in a sense. And they're exposing their inner life to you. Some of it is direct information. Some of it is meta information. When Donald Trump talks, he gives a lot of metadata out. You can look at, why is he telling me this? How is he explaining this, et cetera, in order to figure out, okay, what's in his mind and how does a mind certainly work? It's kind of like you're looking at an astrology chart where you're like, okay, these are the mechanics, the ids, the archetypes of a particular ego, whether it's true or not. I'm saying a channel, radio, a book is a world of that particular individual. It is fascinating to see those worlds. It's just fascinating to see those worlds. Like, my mom once went on somebody else's YouTube channel. I think it was Galloway's. And they were talking about, I think that was the day that Galloway wasn't there. I don't know how many YouTube channels she goes on, but she's used to my channel, right? So like the energy that comes off of my channel. The people who are on the channel are very similar to the hosts of that channel. They have to be, just because otherwise there has to be a Venn diagram. Otherwise they wouldn't understand or wouldn't share value set for them to even care to be there. My channel tends to be very bright, engaging. They can bitch at each other, but it only goes but so far. Have a certain worldview, have a certain view about economics, have a certain view about humanity. All of those things, like, they are similar to you to various degrees, at the very least in the sphere of which you're talking about. She goes to another channel and she's like, what the hell? Like, what is wrong with these people? Because it's a world. Like, you're crafting a reality that you are exuding in the context of your channel. When you write a book, it's the same thing. That is a world. You are delving in the mind of the individual who wrote that book, their values, what they think is right, what they think is wrong. And because it's a book, it's a stream of consciousness where it's just them. And you're reading it like, whoa, did she really put that down? And then you work with that person. And it makes it weirder. It just makes it weird. It just makes it very awkward. It just makes it very, very awkward. I will not tell who wrote that book. I would not tell who wrote that book. But goddamn, it was fantastic. In fact, she wrote several books. The first one was the best, because that one was just wild. It was just out there. Like, this is what I think is right. This is what I think I deserve. This is what I believe in XYZ. I'm a good Christian girl as I fuck this married man who's taking advantage of me because he's not giving me a job. Jane Harper. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And one last one before we go. Jane Harper, because I'm just talking. Can you talk to us about what's going on in Sudan? One of these days, pretty please. Jane, I would love to talk to you about what's going on in Sudan. I do not have the competence to do it. I just don't. I don't know enough about it. I've tried to get a guest on it. In fact, I've just met, oh, that's going to sound racist. I just met this guy who's an African analyst. I'll say it that way. Africa is a very big continent. So I don't necessarily know having clarity on one part has clarity on the other. If you know a Sudan guest, let me know. I'm down for it. I just don't know one. And oftentimes when I get suggestions, look, in a perfect world, which we don't have, when a subject will come up, I would have a specific guest to be able to hit that subject. And I would love to be able to do that across the planet. I would love to be able to do that. I am a one-man band. I deeply require a producer. This channel does not earn enough for a producer. That is part of the issue. It is very difficult to try to continuously do a show that goes on for 3 hours a day, get the guests for that show, prep for that show, and be aware of the events that are taking place around the globe, because you have to basically do that all day. It's an all-day thing, and it hangs over your head in a way that's aggravating, because there's no off switch. You are constantly on, constantly looking at news. In fact, I need to do better at it, if I'm being blunt. It helps to be able to review other shows. Most of the news I do is written, and so it's like you're reading news constantly. But it helps to be able to review other shows to get other points of view. It helps to be able to, the point I'm trying to make, that's a lot to compact within the context of a day, to do a show and to be able to book the guests around the world. Yes, I'm making an excuse. I don't know the various people around the globe to go get. Oftentimes when I'm sending requests to people, they're like, well, you only have 70,000, give or take, subs. And that is often not enough, especially if the views on videos are lower. Not everybody who you bring on the show is going to be a horse. There are going to be some people who you bring on who you enjoy talking to, who are damn good, but don't have the high profile to get a huge number of views. I'm trying to make the point that it's far more difficult to get those people in that context. And without knowing who those people are, it's difficult to even know to reach out to those people. South Sudan is a toughie. It is a toughie. I'm not against it. If you know somebody that you follow, if you know somebody that you think will be interested in coming on, I will definitely reach out to them, and I would definitely try to bring them on for it. It is not a conversation that I'm not willing to have. I am willing to have the conversation. I am willing to find out and learn more about it. I just don't know enough about it myself. It's not something I typically covered. Like, I hit Russian topics because I worked at a Russian channel and we covered that stuff every day. And so it's something that I'm comfortable with. It's a wheelhouse. It's something that I, on some level, get. China, again, it's a major thing. There are many guests that I have for China. And so again, it's something that I, on some level, can get Iran, same thing, many guests for Iran. And not to mention all of those countries are working in tandem, especially in the context of BRICS. So you're kind of fused into that, where you start learning about each of those. I've covered events in Brazil. I've covered, we've covered that stuff for years. Sudan, I know less about. I'm less comfortable in the sense of being able to kind of give a rundown of what's taking place. Even in Europe, covered the European elections, covered stuff that was taking place in Europe. Russia is in Europe, straddling anyway. That stuff I get. I've traveled all throughout Europe. I get it, right? It's like, as an American, you're close to it. You get it's Western history or Western current events. I got to be honest with you, I know less about Africa. I just do. And so Kofi, definitely, I love him to death when he comes on because he informs my point of view about what's taking place, especially in the Sahel region. I don't know how much Kofi knows about Sudan, to be honest. I don't know if that's in his wheelhouse. I would check my other guests that I just met. He covers Africa. I would see what he says. There's another woman that I just met she's an African woman who grew up in North Korea. Her dad the story is fascinating. The story is mind-blowing. I'm going to bring her on. I'm going to try to bring her on next week. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, Chief Fritz, I'm going to try to bring him on next week. In fact, he said they may be able to come on today. Well, today for me, tomorrow for you, yesterday for you. So we'll see. But I got to make changes. I need the show to continue to grow. And I feel like the show's dying. So We will see. We will see. Jan Hopper. What is this? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jonea, not Janet. Oh, I see. Joan, I see. I'm sorry, Joan. I'm sorry. I misread. I am misread. You have my deepest apologies. The screen is far away. Joan, like Jonay. Oh, Jonay Hopper. I see. Not Joan. Okay. Jonay. I'm sorry. Each place has its pronunciations. When I'm here in Malaysia, they say Jamari. It's like, dude, it's Jamal, but I'm not going to correct you. I know you have your endings on those things. But Jonay, thank you, Jonay. Thank you. All right. I'm really going to call it a day. I've been very misogynistic towards Kalis. Please forgive me. I'm just making fun. And I am a guy. I make no bones about it. The women in the channel, it's just going to go to zero. Just going to go to zero. It's like, that misogynistic motherfucker. I am joking her. I am a guy. I make no apologies for it. It's what it is. So yes, I'm going to joke like a guy. All right. Russia sold Alaska to pay for war debts incurred by the Crimean War. Well, also they were concerned that it was so close to America that they may lose it. It was a little bit of both. Yeah. All right. Let's call it a day. Thank all of you who contributed. As I point out, you can contribute. Patreon. I hate doing this part. It's forced. Patreon, PayPal, Super Chats, memberships, all of those things are appreciated. All of those things help the channel. I thank you for all of it. Let's call it a day. I want to thank all of you for joining me. You guys are fantastic. You're the best damn audience. Chat in the business. Brightest, smartest, best smelling breath. Glide when you walk. No, I'm not saying that just because you're my chat. I'm saying it because it's completely, absolutely, invariably true. You guys are fantastic. And I thank you for being here. You be safe. And I will see you at the latest Monday. Free Palestine, free Syria, free Lebanon, free Haiti, all of this. Free the world, man. Free the world. This is a fucked up planet. And it doesn't have to be this way. Sarah wants to call me a dreamer. Fair enough. I accept that. I don't think. Look. We don't have to be this way in real terms. We're stuck in political systems and ideologies that do not suit, let's say, the betterment of humanity. We are wasting resources. And I don't mean just resources, I mean human resources. Think of all of the people in Gaza. Think of all of the people in Haiti. Think of all of the people in Syria. Think of all of the people in just shitty parts of the globe who are living off of $5, $10 a day. Think of the potential that is in those people. If you think of a bell curve distribution or whatever curve distribution, just like it is in the US or anywhere else, a certain percentage are going to be smart. A certain percentage is going to be like her. Like, you have a percentage that's like this.
Bigger economy than Russia is.
So much bigger economy than Russia is. You have a percentage that's that. You have a percentage of people that are extraordinarily bright. And you have most people who are in the middle. What are we losing by not being able to get the value out of those people that are bright in the various places around the globe where those people are stuck in poverty and mire and war and etc. We are losing out as humanity. All right, I'm going to end this. I'm going to say like, share, subscribe. You guys are fantastic. And I will see you at the latest Monday. If anything happens before then, I'll see you before then. Be safe all.